Good morning. It is 11:02 a.m. on Saturday, August 3rd, 2019. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I didn't just get up. I'll explain more in a moment. This is 5 more minutes. So, I spent all evening yesterday working very hard, and then this morning had to do a bit more before my computer would be ready again. And so that's why, as I say, I didn't just get up. But I have now built a thing. Ba-ba! I knew that I needed a new piece of furniture. There was a variety of reasons, but I had for too long in this apartment been going with my desktop computer sitting on the floor next to my desk because it doesn't actually, so even though this desk that I use technically has a place that's theoretically for placing a desktop computer in, I have a fancy desktop computer and the case is too big. It doesn't go into that place. And so it was sitting off to the side, but that always kind of just made a mess of cables, and it was just kind of on the floor, and it was kind of difficult to clean just because, you know, it accumulates dust, but then there's all the cables. It's not easy to just like sweep that exactly, and it was just kind of, it didn't look good. And, you know, I'll also mention that in theory, if I'm getting a new puppy at some point, which I hope to, having fewer cables and wires on the floor, probably a good thing. So I ordered a piece of furniture, and then yesterday I built it, and let me demonstrate now. Ta-da! So as you can see, my computer sitting on top of this thing, which is now also designed to be a place for holding some of my other bits of clutter so that it can be, you know, placed nicely out of the way instead of, you know, cluttering. But having built furniture before, this one was actually bigger than most other things. I think probably the biggest piece of furniture that I've ever built, other than assembling my bed, which has the, you know, larger total dimensions, but far fewer pieces. I will say that I was very pleased with this particular bit of furniture. That the assembly of it was very forgiving, in the sense that there were a couple of places where I feel like the pictures were a little bit unclear in terms of like what's the front and what's the back. And so I discovered partway through assembly that some of the pieces I had put on backwards and had to go back. But everything was just screws with a little Allen wrench, and though they were all able to, you know, come back out and then go back in without difficulty. You know, there are some types of furniture that definitely have, you know, screws or pieces that once in would be very difficult to undo without destroying it. But with a relatively few missteps, I managed to assemble the whole thing, and I'm pretty happy with it. When I hadn't shopped for furniture in a while, and there's definitely two major categories of furniture, and those are, you know, cheap as hell and then way too expensive. And there's not a lot of middle ground, it seems like, because either you're getting the cheap as hell version of whatever you're buying, or you get the not cheap as hell version, which is way too expensive. So, what are you going to do? But I'm pretty happy with this one in terms of it not being, I would say it is on the, you know, it's honestly nicer in appearance than I was expecting, because what I bought was sort of at the upper edge of the cheap as hell type. You know, it is definitely still not, you know, hardwood. But ultimately I was pretty happy with it. Came in a big heavy box. It took me all evening to put together, and my shoulders are sore from reaching and tightening things. But you know, I was very glad that I measured it carefully, because it is just the right size to fit in the spot that I have between my desk and my couch. And hopefully it'll help me to have everything organized a bit better. And I'm pleased with myself, but I got very sweaty and worked very hard and stayed up late. I did put on the last season of Orange is the New Black while I was doing that, though, and I'd been watching it already. But I finished it last night while I was working on the furniture, and pretty happy with the last season. Obviously, there's so many characters in that show, of course, that like by the time you're at the end, it's like to try to resolve everybody. Like you can't. It's just too many people. So you end up with some stories feeling like they're hanging threads, and others feeling like you at least sort of know what the trajectory is going to be. But without spoiling anything, there's at least one pair of characters where it just really feels like a dramatic development happens in the very last scene we see with each other, and we don't see any fallout for it at all. So what does that mean? I don't know. Anyway, but it's overall, I was pretty happy with it. It's one of those shows where, you know, our dramatic instincts make us want there to be real changes to the prison system as a victory for the characters in that show. And yet, because it's basing it on real life, the prison system, and then also the, you know, ICE detainment camps were introduced in this season. And yeah, the, you know, big systematic changes to those things don't happen because of a TV show. Or, well, I don't know, at least not just because of a TV show. And so to have if that were to ever, you know, in a TV show to imply that, you know, oh, just the actions of our hero characters made a difference. And it's like, well, no, it has to be making a difference in the sense of that, you know, the starfish analogy, you know, if I'm assuming everyone's heard it, but if you haven't, the idea of a little girl walking along a beach, and there are hundreds of starfish that have been beached and stranded, and we see her pick one up and toss it back into the sea, and then someone, you know, watches her pace at doing that and says, "Why are you bothering? There's no way to save them all. You know, you can't save them all." And she said, you know, it's like, it doesn't make any difference because, you know, there's too many for you. And the little girl says, well, it made a difference to that one. And so that's the only way that this kind of show can have any sort of a victory against the system, is just by casting it as the rare exception. Anyway, yeah, it was a pretty good show, though. But ultimately, I'm still, my place is still a disaster area while I kind of recover from, you know, dealing with all of the waste packaging from the furniture and the just getting you know, replacing all of the things that had to be cleared out of the way while I was working on it, and it's just a mess, and I'm not looking forward to it, honestly. But ultimately, I am making steps towards a better final trying to think of a word that's not solution, because that's an awkward phrase. Better final outcome. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.